All right, so thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started with this is the second virtual discussion. We have about 54 minutes, and there are only three of us. So, two of you, I will not use the breakout room because there are just two of you. We'll see how this goes, and we'll see if other people join us in a bit. So, I have two questions. One of you wants to talk about comments working on reading Kindred. Okay. So, and since there are only two of us, we probably will have time to talk a little bit about Kindred. I did want to spend this time talking about Walter Mosley's Devil in a Blue Dress, but I'm pretty sure we can get to something about Kindred. And I think we're going to start with somewhere around Katie's, because my first discussion question is about what kind of, how would you describe Mosley's Devil in a Blue Dress? Is it detective crime? Is it mystery? Is it suspense? That's actually the first question. So that will get to what Katie's asking us about. So I'm going to go to my discussion questions. I actually, as I'm thinking through this, and it's just the three of us here, I still feel like I should give you two time to talk to each other. Shouldn't cheat you out of that time to discuss these discussion questions. So the first question is thinking about the readings, Glover and McCracken, and then telling us about certain kind of perspectives for what popular literature is. They also give us some qualifications. So like they make distinction between, so suspense and mystery, they in the same category, but there's some ways to qualify them. So this is mostly mystery. It may look like a suspense, but what is actually going on? What do we know? If there's not a crime to be solved, then it's more suspense than mystery. I don't know. That's one of the distinctions that they try to make for us. And they give us some of the formulas, like they talk about what is hard-boiled crime versus mystery versus suspense. So the question here is, given the overlapping of suspense, mystery, crime fiction, and crime fiction includes detective fiction, how would you classify Devil in the Blue Dress? Now, that's the first part of the question I want you all to at least talk to each other about. And then the second question is thinking about Devil in the Blue Dress, which characters did you personally find interesting and why? And what did those characters help you understand, learn, or think about in terms of the course? Like, what does it tell us about our social worlds, right? What does it tell us? What does that character help you see, learn, or think about when it comes to something in the world of the text, of the story, the 1940s situation in which they lived? And is there anything about that character that you could think about in your personal, in our social worlds now? So those are the two questions. I am going to copy and paste those into the chat area so you can continue to see them. And so, like I said, I'm still going to give you time to talk about it. I'm not going to stick you in a group, in a separate room. I'm just going to mute myself and give you this 10, 12 minutes to talk. Does that work for you all? Two of you? Okay, so I do still want to let you share your thoughts without me like staring at you. So actually, since we're just going to stay in this big room, this area here, I'm going to just pause the video so you can have your private conversation. And then I'll come back on in about 12 minutes. And then, yeah, we'll do it that way. So I'm pausing the video now. Okay, so thank you for taking that time to talk to each other. Did you have time to get to both the questions or no?
We did.
Okay, cool. So what did you decide about describing, using the reading to help you describe where you might put Devil in the Blue Dress?
Well, we kind of went back and forth between mystery and crime fiction.
Okay.
We did discuss that the definition of suspense was basically you know who the criminal is at the beginning, and then it goes throughout the story. So we decided that it definitely was a suspense. And then we pretty much based it on mystery because, we didn't know anything about a crime or anything at the beginning of the story. We only knew that Easy was looking for this Daphne. So we decided that it would go more into the mystery category.
Yes, that makes sense. So in this case, we have a blending of these two subgenres. We have mystery and we have crime. It's kind of the detective crime too, because you have police in it. So you have a law enforcement presence. You also have a detective, because Albright is like this weird. Remember, DeWitt Albright is the person who comes. So he's actually in charge of trying to figure out to find Daphne, as far as taking on a case to find this missing person. He's looking for her, but he can't do it because Daphne is, she hangs out in Watts, and a white guy trying to go down there just doesn't make any sense. And so he needs someone else. So you have mystery and you have elements of crime. And that's why I say, Kaylee, I'm not sure if I can answer your question about a clear distinction. Well, no, your question was between suspense and mystery. So this might answer your question.
Yeah, it was more like we kind of went off of the little definitions from that one mini lesson video, like the definitions for suspense, and then mystery. Would it be like the classical definition, like who did it kind of thing, or is suspense a type of mystery? Because is it a subgenre of mystery, or are they two like on the same level differences?
Yeah, I think they are. No, they're different, because suspense is more of, and I think suspense is actually could be more like psychological too, like trying to just figure out what's happening and what's going on. And the mystery is you are actually trying to uncover something. Suspense is like waiting for something to be revealed, whereas a mystery, I think in a mystery, you're more, as a reader, you're more involved in trying to uncover what's going on. That's, if that makes any sense. So
yeah, that makes a little bit of sense.
And then the idea of crime, so that crime and mystery kind of go closer together, because you are literally trying to figure something out in those two. I think you are right that definitely Devil in a Blue Dress is mystery crime, not suspense. And sometimes we can figure out what something is just by figuring out what it's not. Like that.
That's kind of what we did.
Okay. That is an acceptable argument. I know what this is not. I can't tell you what it is, but given our choices, I can tell you it definitely isn't a suspense. And I think this, if you a chance to look at the any of the examples, the mini lectures by Professor Schmid I put up, he does a good job of like giving us these differences between suspense and mystery. And then this text is actually also more of a detective crime mystery. It's not hard-boiled detective, and it's not hard-boiled crime, because it just doesn't start out that way. And also, Easy is not the traditional detective. He doesn't have the background that you expect from the hardcore crime mystery. Like, he didn't used to be a police officer or something. He's not the person people come in to say, hey, come figure this out. He kind of falls into all these crimes, and it's in his best interest to figure out, the answers. It's in his personal interest, because he could quite possibly be charged with crimes that he didn't commit because circumstantial evidence around him. So he has a personal investment in solving these crimes, whereas usually a detective has like an economic investment. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So the thing I was looking for here, and I think we did this yesterday too, is like, as long as we see it's not suspense, it's this other thing. And then we also have that, I think Professor Schmidt talked about which one, but he talks about we have this additional like, first perspective. So it's also like a crime detective because we do get the perspective of Easy. We get like inside his head and his thoughts. And so he is like the main character. Yeah. And if we look at the second question, the part 2 of this question, I like this one because I just like to find out how people are seeing some of the characters and just see what kinds of characters people are you're basically that are catching your attention. So what did you?
I thought it was interesting that we both mentioned characters that had questionable motives, that we found them the most interesting. Like we were kind of confused if they were allies and then they kind of turned around and backstabbed. So
Yeah, I talked about her friend that he met. I don't know why I can't think of her name.
I think it was like
But
Coretta or something.
friend.
The lady at the beginning, Coretta, who he gets
Yeah,
information.
Coretta.
Oh yeah.
Coretta. I found her interesting because, she made it seem like she was Daphne's friend. Then she slept with him, but then she went back to Daphne and let Daphne know that he was looking for her, but she wouldn't tell him if she gave her money to not say anything. So I just found that interesting that are you her friend or are you not her friend? Because it's like you're playing both sides. So I just found that interesting that
And that's something to keep in mind is when you're saying that she's playing both sides. And it's what was her motive to playing Easy and Daphne against each other? What is it that she's trying to get? It's very materialistic.
yeah, she wanted money from Daphne, but then she wanted to sleep with Easy. It was kind of
Oh, she wanted 2 things from Easy. Because she said, if you find Daphne, can Coretta get a little $10 maybe?
oh yeah. She did say that she wanted money too.
So, she gets a bonus with the guy. I don't know if you want to see that. But yeah, she shakes them both down for money, for information. So that also lets us know, that also ties into some of the things that Easy talks about. We're in the 1940s, work for people, when he said like, you can work, you can get money in California a lot easier than you can in the South, but you can work, get these jobs. But most of the people we saw with jobs were men, like regular sort of kind of factory jobs, those were men. So if we push that a little bit, the fact that this woman is her looks, she's with a man, she's with Dupree. She says she always has more than one boyfriend. If we look at Daphne's relationship with men, these women are pretty much still hustling for economic, they need money and they're hustling for it in a different way than men are.
I had a quick question. So, what was $20 back then in the 1940s? Like, what would that be for us? Because I know now it's nothing, but
I was wondering if anybody was gonna go and do that like, conversion, even with the horror at the Ballad of Black Tom, when he said like $200, that's gonna pay my rent for like 6 months, and everything else that they needed. So it might be worthwhile. I'm looking this up on my iPad. I used to have it's like a time money conversion chart. Like it'll tell you how much money is from the 1920s what $20 worth. So I will look that up while we continue to talk. But if you just think about it, you're hustling for $20 or $10, but that's what they have in common. And Coretta. So we might be able to say that the reason she's playing these people against each other is there's a higher goal, economic goal. There's this money, and what little we know about her is she's. He said at one point that she was a main man's dream. So women are pretty much still looked at in this time period, as sexual objects of a man's desire. And so yeah, that may have something to do with how she is in relationship with other people. If that makes any sense.
It does.
Kaylee, what was your the list I have up here are people who came up from the conversation yesterday. But Kaylee, who was your can you give us the name of someone?
Yeah, I actually talked about Jappy and Mouse, the other two people on there. I talked about Jappy when she mentioned Coretta, saying that he also had questionable motives because he was like the dude that owned the bar, right?
Yeah, he was the one who
Um,
got the easy job.
Yeah, and he must have known that there's way more behind that job than what Easy knew. And I feel like he would have given Easy a heads up.
Yes.
So that was kind of a
Yeah.
bummer.
And someone yesterday said that they were most surprised by Joppy. Like he just like this. He appeared to be like, you know, you remember him just cleaning his countertop and just like sort of like just the middle guy. And then by the end, he's a brutal murderer.
Yeah.
So what about Mouse? I have to tell you, Mouse is one of my all-time faves. He is so scary. I love him.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that Easy, even though he was kind of like he mentioned that he didn't want to go back to his violent past because he liked being a house owner and like California and stuff, and he was kind of happy with his life. But then to find out he has this person kind of that we've only heard stories about named Mouse that killed was like his father-in-law or something.
Mhm.
And he just shows up and kind of helps him out in all these violent issues. And he just had like a person like that he could just call. Kind of makes me wonder about like Easy's past.
Well, yeah, and Mouse, we Easy can be the person he is because he has a friend like Mouse. Like, he has a friend who does these violent things. So
Easy doesn't have to.
and yeah, and I said this in the meeting in our discussion yesterday. Like one of the I guess the best introductions I've ever seen of a character is how Mouse is introduced. Mouse isn't even in the scene. Easy is just reading a letter that he forced this lady to write. And he's scared. He reads the letter and he says, I just want to go hide in the closet, or maybe I should pack and leave town. I was like, I can't wait till Mouse shows up because he's got to be awesome if he's making Easy this afraid. And then I want to point out one other thing about that letter from Mouse. When Mouse ends that, when he gets to the end of that letter, he says Easy that now we know Mouse is not literate. Like he can't read and write very well to send his own letter, because when he ends that letter, he says, you know, I forget the girl's name. I have her writing this for me. And I told her she better write everything I say word for word, or I'm gonna like beat her next Sunday. And then he says, so keep this letter. And I'm like, this man is seriously horrible. So he's gonna show up, make sure he has the letter so he can make sure she wrote everything. And then I can see him like going back just to beat her up if she did it. I was like, wow. And so it also gives me a clue into the lives of women during this time period. And the reason I'm taking this moment every time to share this is I just want to share with you how when you're reading things, like picking up these small little clues, like, okay, what kind of life, even though women aren't a feature of this story, we have clues about how women live their lives according and to how it's presented in this world that Easy presents to us in California and Houston in the 1940s. We have a little bit of sense for the lives of women just by looking at those little bitty bits of pieces and they present in the story. Does that make sense?
It does.
And so one of the things I said yesterday is like, you don't have to always go for like the biggest character in these stories. You can go for what is it that's catching your kind of critical thinking as you're looking through. All right. Was that? I hope this is a little bit.
I have a quick question. Was kind of how you were relating it to gender in our conversation, I brought up a racial aspect maybe when I was talking about Jaffe, because that was more of an African American bar,
Hmm.
and he was the owner of it. So that's why I was even a little bit more confused as to why he betrayed Easy a little bit and kind of sided with Mr. Albright.
Well, yeah, and one of the things to consider is that, and this is, I may struggle a bit to articulate this, but even within the communities that you think might be together, people are at odds. People don't like each
Yeah.
other. So race is not a unifying thing. So I remember, I don't know, you might be young. I don't know if you know Roseanne Barr. She's a comedian.
I don't.
No, okay. Well, she used to have this show called Roseanne, and Roseanne was very controversial in like the 90s because she talked about being a poor, like being raised from a trailer park, and she was saying that one of the things she said was like, I'm white America's worst nightmare. I'm trailer park trash with money. I mean, she's like I'm always gonna be that. Like, I'm not gonna become this other thing. I'm always gonna be trailer park trash white lady with money. And it was like, oh, okay. Because you think like, well, aren't you all together? So we have this thing called there's also interracial differences. I know what was Junior. One of the things that Junior was like the bouncer in the club at I forget whose club. I think it was, I forget, a different club. But he was a bouncer, and he talked about how Junior didn't like anybody who he thought was doing better than him. And so you have these instances just in like people with jealousies. You're not united just by something like race. And if you're not part of that community or that in-group or even that ethnic or racial, on the outside, you would think like, don't you all bond together? No, I don't like her.
I do want to say I can understand that. I come from North Carolina, and everything is still very split up. Like, it's not like here in Michigan where you can go to school from anywhere. Like, you can do school of choice and you can go to school from anywhere. It is literally split up by where you live. So if you live in the hood, you go to this certain school. But if you live in a decent neighborhood, you go to this certain school, and you literally have to go to the school where you live. There's no school of choice where you can choose to decide where you want to go, believe it or not.
And so how are you connecting that with, does that help us understand like why, some of these people in Easy's story, like they have the same background, but they don't necessarily look out for each other?
Yeah, so like you were saying, like Roseanne, when she was saying, I live in a trailer park and I'm always going to be like specified as that person that lives in a trailer park, but I'm going to just have money now. Like, I lived in the country, so that's the type of school and stuff I went to. That's the type of, but if I would have lived in the city, that's what I would have been classified as.
And so then you actually, and one of the things that I brought Roseanne up as an example, because she was saying that as like pride, like this is who I am. Like, I'm not going to become some other expectation of what a white American should be because I'm now successful. It's like, no, this is who I am. And so in that respect, you have people who come together around similar shared experiences. So poverty could be one. So you could have an interracial group of people, ethnic group of people who stick side by side because they find something that they have in common. Now remember, we're talking about a group of people who left their commonality, which was like, what do you say, Houston, and they grew up poor, and they went to they went to California where everybody's supposed to have these opportunities. But with those opportunities still comes this competition. Still comes is this opportunity to like, oh, you're doing better than I am. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to look out for each other.
Yeah, that made sense in the book and everything. I was just shocked because I assumed kind of like they're both chilling at this like probably a similar class bar with the similar people. I thought they would have been more on the same page, and then I was just shocked that they weren't. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's cool because it's like, oh, this is like real people. I mean, even if you think about, I hope you don't necessarily have this, but in real life, relationships are complicated. Sometimes people are friends for the longest time, and then something happens at 20, 30 years, like, oh, wow, this is a different relationship than I thought it was. Okay, no, we're not beating people to death, thank goodness. Like, please do we trying to get our friends murdered, but yeah, the idea is that how does this reflect? So there's that and also Easy is surprised too. You know, he's like,
Yeah.
I think you are a murderer killer, and especially you know how Coretta is murdered. It's senseless. That did not have to happen. So he's surprised too. So one of the things is that people surprise you. You think you know someone, you think you have things in common, and people surprise you all the time. That also might mean people surprise themselves. Depending on your life's experiences, that you may surprise yourself. So let's look at the last question. I'm going to give you some time, and that is, I'm giving you some of the answers already. I don't want to give you the answers. So the next question is just a prompt is, what are some major themes you found in this story? And then for any theme that you, and we kind of talked around some of them when someone said, when I was talking about gender, like gender is a theme. And then how did the theme reflect something about the social world of the time? And then maybe the social world now that you can relate to. So we have 15 minutes. Do you all want to talk just with each other? Or do you just want to keep talking together?
I think we can keep talking together.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right. So yeah, any things that you recall are like, oh, I saw this. So the one example from earlier was like gender. Like there are some clear differences between the life of the few women who are in here versus the men. And we can see some social inequities between the women's lives and the men's lives. And what about you two?
What is Coretta's job? I think I can't.
We don't know. I think
Okay.
Coretta was introduced. She came into the bar trailing behind Dupree, who's this big man. And we don't know other than she always has, she said easy, she has more than one boyfriend. You know, I have more than one boyfriend. That's it. We don't know. And we know she shakes people down for money. So she may not have had a steady job.
Yeah, even Daphne, it just seems like both of them is like based on their relationships with the men. It wasn't specifically what they did for a living or how they lived. I mean,
Exactly. So the few women we get in this story, their livelihoods are heavily dependent on what the men are doing. And how crafty they can be. You know, Daphne steals $30,000. So her job may be to be pretty and get as much as she can get out of life from the fact that she's beautiful.
mhm.
I mean,
But I'm gonna have to say, raised and growing up, everything pretty much was based on men. You know, it was we didn't eat dinner until the man of the house came home, or we didn't sit down together until the man of the house came home, and we're brought up to talk to, cook and clean and serve. That was the main thing that I saw. It wasn't about what career you were going to have or what you were going to do. It was based mainly on keeping the house and making sure you did those type of things.
Okay, so we did get a certain, which we would call that is, that's a theme of, a male-dominated society at the time, and women had to find their way around it. Any other theme, Kaylee?
I'm gonna go. I kind of use this as an example, and I don't remember if it was one of the discussion forums or a short response, but
Uh-huh.
the theme of like racial prejudice throughout the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like early on, when Mr. Albright doesn't feel comfortable going into that mostly African American bar, so he goes and gets easy because he's somebody that can. And also, like later, a more specific example when he meets up with Mr. Albright again in the Santa Monica area, and how he felt uncomfortable there because it was a mostly white area, and then he got harassed by, I think it was like some Jewish children, and
Oh, yeah, at the pier?
yes,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
here,
So,
and so that was like a social issue theme kind of throughout the book, and I talked about how it's still present in the world today. Maybe not as bad, but as we're seeing a bunch of stuff in the current news, like it's still pretty prevalent.
yeah, well, but what if you think about the Me Too movement, right? That like the Me Too and women being just the sexual harassment and that of women is, it is something that is still around and prevalent in our culture.
Yeah,
Um,
I would agree with that as well.
so we have, I'm just trying to recap here. So one of the things is just like the women's relationship with men, and you can list them all. There's Coretta, there's her. Oh, also, Kaylee, you brought up the kids they're like 17 to their 20s, the kids at the pier. It's that one girl. She's
Yeah,
just so nice.
yeah, there's the one
Honest
little girl
girl.
that was nice, and I think it was the older girl's like boyfriend or husband or partner or something that came over and started doing the real harassment.
And the
And then I think
problem
Mr. Albright threatened him,
and the
and also
problem
like
was, yep.
the violence prevalence throughout the movie. That's a theme, or throughout the book. That's also a theme.
Oh yeah, the violence. But the reason I bring that girl up is because she's just oblivious. She's oblivious to the fact that you probably shouldn't be talking to this black man. She's just innocent, like nice, but in an easiest saying, like, I wish you would stop talking to me, right?
Yeah,
But even so, her dependence is also on when the boys come over, like she can't stop them. They will not listen to her. She can't say like, no, we're just having a conversation because the social situation is such that you can't be. So even in a certain respect, she's dependent on what the men have decided is going on.
yeah, they have superiority.
And so these are some of the other themes. So yes, we had the racial prejudice. Yeah, and I think that's what you just mentioned, Kaylee, physical
Yeah.
violence.
Yep.
And if you think about how these things play out, and we have war, and we also have they overlap. Like it isn't like one thing. So when we think about the war, it's coupled with issues of racial stereotypes. So they go together because Easy talks about his time in the war and the fact that what it meant when he was fighting Germans who are, also European. And when he comes back, so these categories like stack on top of each other. Even when we think about the role of women, Daphne gets to live two lives. She gets to live lives at two different kind of women, right? Racially. You know what I'm talking about here?
Because she hangs out with Coretta and that crowd, but then also she's like white and wealthy. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, she's either biracial but she
Yeah,
looks
I'm
white.
not positive.
Yeah, so she looks white. So she's biracial, but she can pass as a white woman. And she can also, once people find out, you know, oh, you got black, she's black. So she is a woman, but she lives in these two different racial worlds, and she does it very strategically. She uses that as best she can as a way to get a better life. And so even with the role of women, race comes into, because the whole thing about Daphne is the fact that when they find out later, oh, she's part black, and what does that mean? So that makes her a lot more complicated.
Well, back then it just means she's black. They just automatically just put her in that category.
And she also plays that role. You remember that she has an accent when Easy first meets her, and then when stuff goes bad, when they find the murder guy, she starts just talking normal. He's like, "What is up with that?" So,
Yeah.
so what I'm trying to point out here in our last few minutes is that there are even more themes. So someone brought up yesterday, like there's this idea of there are heroes and there are people who save people, and they're not always the same. Like Mouse is a bad person, but he does good things when he saves Easy.
Yeah, he was actually loyal. We talked about like there are a lot of issues with loyalty throughout the book. And he's one of the characters that although he's bad, he was loyal to Easy.
Yes, and Easy is loyal to him, but Easy's loyal to him, and the only way he can be is to try to get away from him, because he was like, wow, this is like, my friend is a bad person. And then we also yesterday talked about the theme of running away from things. So Easy runs away from the South, not the South. He runs away from Houston. He joins the army. He comes back to Houston, and then he runs away to, what is that? California. But no one is ever successful in actually running away from their problems. That's another theme in his story. So what I want to sort of wrap up and say, yes, it's a crime story, it's a mystery, but it also has a lot of social commentary because of the diverse characters that are in this story, and it's being told from a perspective that you don't usually get in detective fiction. And so we do get all these other social issues that we can pick up on, because it's not a traditional hard-boiled crime where the detective is just solving. It's not like if we thought about Sherlock Holmes, it's not just about solving a crime. It's actually about the world in which these people live. And Easy is just trying to like make his way through it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, we have about 4 minutes left. What do you want to say, talk about, or recap? As you see, I can keep talking. This was the word here with the little boy that Easy eventually does liberate and save. Remember the little Mexican boy? No? I don't remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
The guy who was running for mayor. So
wasn't he part of that's not actually Daphne's like man that was looking for her though, is it?
No, he was looking for her, yes, but he was trying to blackmail somebody else. Oh, and then also like the animal symbolism, there's that going on. Like Mouse in and of itself, Mouse is a really great character because his name is the exact opposite of everything that he is. Oh, and then I guess the other thing is also think about, we were talking about these characters, but also think about the minor characters. The minor characters are important to the story. Like Coretta is really important to the story. The little boy is important to the story. even the two police officers kind of harass and pick him up. So I just want to point out that the minor characters are often in this story to serve specific roles to help reflect the society and the world that we're looking at. All right, we're at 2 minutes. I hope this was worth your time.
It was nice talking to actual people other than my children.
You have any questions about like the assignments that are coming up? So let me just like the critical paper is coming up in a week and a half or so. That's probably like the biggest thing. You have to, write something more than those short responses. Those short responses are designed to get you in a mode of applying like critical ways to read, psychoanalytical, and these are all introductory. We do not expect people to like, oh look, I'm a psychoanalyst. No. I know all about feminism because I'm gonna look at the role of women. But those short assignments are designed to help you take an approach and taking the aspects from Foster to analyze the text, take it apart, but say something about it. That say something is your interpretation. And so when you get to the critical essay, you're doing that just on a larger scale. That is like those smaller ones to get you like in a mode of being able to critique something and have a point to say about it. So if you haven't done if you haven't performed the way you want to on those short responses, I try to give the feedback there, but that's just like a microcosm of the bigger one. So I just wanted to say that and have that on tape. I'm gonna stop this now. And then if you have any other questions you want to talk about, we can do